Welcome back to another episode of Potions and Processing. I am your host, Raven White. I am feeling a little rough, not gonna lie. I had a long weekend. I got sunburned. I tried to cut my own bangs. We're not gonna talk about it. I'm just feeling incredibly tired. And if you've watched some of my past videos, you know I'm chronically ill. I have a lot going on in this poor, tired body. And it's just been a lot of extra lately. I was feeling a lot of things over the weekend because I was supposed to have an appointment with a neurologist on the 9th of June, and it had unfortunately been bumped back all the way to July 14th. Thank you, medical system. So I think I was just feeling kind of frustrated and overdone and dry, and now crispy. So this video I think is going to have to be a little bit shorter. Last week's was really long and it took a lot out of me, and I was still editing down to the deadline of getting that video uploaded. Which, as a reminder, last week's episode was coming out for Pride. I have talked about my queerness before online. I've been on Instagram for many years. I have a business, Curious Corporate Publishing, where I have talked about it online. I have talked about being queer online for many years. However, I have never talked about how I came to find out that I was queer or how I experienced it in my youth. So that was a big thing for me to talk about what it was like to experience it as a queer young person and to not have terminology, to not have awareness, to not have any kind of support, and then to experience abuse from my parents because they were not thrilled about it because they were fundamentalist Christians. Now, I experienced a lot of abuse in my home. Okay, I went through a lot of really terrible things, and there's something I want to say here that's, I think, important. A lot of the abuse that I went through had nothing to do with religion. A lot of the abuse I went through was simply because my parents were really terrible people who got off on hurting their kids. And they used religion as an excuse to justify a lot of the things that they did. And the church does that repeatedly, a lot of the time. It just is a fact, okay? And I'm sorry that it hurts people's feelings. The church chronically covers up abuse, especially domestic violence. It happens all of the time. One of the things that really crushed me, that just broke my heart after I kind of started to deconstruct my faith and figure out what it was that I actually believed in, was when I was growing up, I was part of the Voice of the Martyrs, which, if you grew up in fundamental Christianity, you probably were involved in it. It was about spreading the gospel and being a part of missionary groups and supporting people who were spreading the word of Christ all over the world. I was so into it. I loved it. I got like the magazines where it talked about mission trips and people helping restore villages and spreading the word of God. And it was just something that was so cool to me. And I remember reading about this one specific guy who was out there spreading the word of Christ, and he got arrested for it and he was imprisoned for it. And it was this whole big thing in the ministry. It was very sensationalized about how he was imprisoned and that his wife and his kids were just so devastated that he was imprisoned and he was gone for so many years. And I want to say that that shouldn't happen. Okay, I think it's terrible that that happened to him. He shouldn't have been imprisoned for his faith. None of that should be happening. I felt so much pain for his family and so much just, oh my God, like, this man is suffering for his faith. He is a martyr for his faith. I felt so much conviction over this, and I prayed for his family all of the time, and I was so devastated for his children that they did not have a father, that they didn't have they were separated, and especially because my own father, you know, I didn't have one because he had died, and it was such a burden on my heart for this family. Years later, I found out that that man was actually incredibly abusive and beat the shit out of his wife and his children. And he was so big in the ministry that the church just overlooked it, did not care. Now, his wife went to the church multiple times and told them, he is hurting us. Please help us. And the church said, it's obviously your fault. You're doing something wrong. The whole time he was imprisoned overseas for his faith, it was the only time that her and her kids had peace and were safe. How messed up is that? She did eventually get away, but it took years because he was so influential and the church was so influential and they were such a power couple within the Christian community that it was so incredibly hard for her to get away with her children and get out safely, because they were more interested in preserving this identity for money, for power, for control, because that is what the church does. Not every church, okay? We get it. It's the same thing with not all men. We get it. And the reason why I bring this up is because I started to get comments on my videos when I was posting about my content, about coming out to my parents and getting the crap beat out of me. And I did. I'm not making it up. That happened to me. A lot of really bad things happened to me because I was queer. And that would have happened to me regardless, because they really did believe that. The point was not that I was queer. The point was that these things were happening in the name of religion, in the name of extreme beliefs. And that whether you believe that queer people are a sin or whatever, that aside, you shouldn't be beating children. You shouldn't be condoning violence against people. But the plot was missed. The plot was missed. And instead, people were just leaving silly remarks, and they didn't see what I was saying. Instead, all they saw was a queer person that was obviously a sinner that needed to be saved. They didn't take any time to understand what I was saying. They don't know anything about me or my relationship with God or my story. They just saw, oh, queer equals sin. Queer equals hate. Queer equals condemn. And they become so blinded that they don't even take a second to think, well, let's just hold up. What is this person actually saying? What is the context of what is happening? And that is how people like me end up getting beaten when they're 8 years old over things they don't understand. And that is how people like that poor woman and her children get trapped in abusive relationships for years. And the only time that they feel safe is when their spouse is locked up in prison because they happen to be a Christian in a bad land. Let me tell you, when I found out the guilt that I had when I had prayed for that man to come home and prayed that he would have a safe return to his family, and that guilt was not mine to carry, but I felt so messed up because I felt like I was contributing to her and her children's misery. I just feel like sometimes we need to take a step back and reflect and remember that wherever you stand in your faith, just take a breath, please, and remember that we should always come from it from a place of love and understanding first. That has always been my point of view. Something I was talking about with a friend of mine the other night is that I have always had great kindness in my heart, something I'm very proud of, something that I carry in me with a fierceness that I don't even know where it came from. But in spite of everything that has ever been done to me, in spite of everything that I have been through, there is a kindness in my soul and a softness that I treasure above everything. And I have empathy, and I approach things with empathy. I do my best in every situation. And anything that I do not understand and anything that is not a part of my perspective and things that are not my story, I approach it with empathy, with this is not mine. This is not something that is for me. So before I just put a foot of judgment in here, I'm going to first try to understand. I'm first going to apply some empathy and some softness and some kindness. And if that is a sin, I will gladly commit the sin of empathy. I had to do some reflection after this last video that I did because it was really scary to talk about all of that and put it out there, because I knew that the more that I talk about it, the more that the people that hate people like me will find it. And they'll leave comments and they'll start to filter in. It just is what happens. No matter what, across the board, no matter who you are, there are always going to be people that hate you. And I am a sensitive soul. Just is what it is. And I had to think for a minute. Am I strong enough to just brush it aside? Am I enough of a person that it won't bother me in a way that I will just be able to either ignore it or just look at it as faulty software updates? Because I feel like I'm just getting started and I don't want to stop just because a couple of people who didn't get enough love in their life are now going to put it on other people on the internet. And then on the other hand, I had so many wonderfully kind people, and then people from my own community show up and leave just as many nice comments and say it meant a lot to hear and that they identified with what I had to say and it made them feel seen. I sat with it for a bit and I thought on it. And honestly, the more I think on it, I've already been through the worst and I survived. I've already had all of the worst things said to me and I survived. People on the internet can say and think what they like. And I think I'm going to be okay. I'm just going to be over here and I'm going to keep telling you about what happened to me. And if it makes you uncomfortable, good. Discomfort gives way to change. Discomfort gives way to growth. I can't change anything about my story. It happened. It is what it is. It's my truth. It is the truth. I'm done softening it for other people. I've done that for my entire life. I did it for my family for a really long time. I changed things. I sugarcoated it. I watered things down to preserve the sanctity and safety for everybody else. And in doing so, I denied myself healing. I denied myself visibility. I'm not doing it anymore. I was 8 years old, locked in a cage, deprived of human contact, and for the first part of it, deprived of anything. No bed, no blanket, no pillow, no clothes except for what I was wearing, no books, no toys, no light, no nothing. My window was screwed shut, my closet was padlocked, everything was taken from me. When they let me out to go to the bathroom, I was supervised. I couldn't even go to the bathroom without somebody watching me. And every day my stepfather came back and he beat me. He beat me so bad until the bruises on my body were so deep that the skin broke and bled. I was 8 years old when it started. I was accused of molesting my siblings when I was the one who was being molested and raped. I was 8 years old. And down the line, when I was trying to discover my sexuality and I was drawing pictures of women, naked women, they were not lewd, they were not pornographic, they were just pictures. I was an artist. I was already drawing. I did all kinds of stuff. I molded clay. I drew. I did all kinds of stuff. This was when I was just a little bit older. I had all kinds of artistic things that I did. It was innocent. It was just an artist thing. Okay. So when they found that, there was nothing remotely weird about it. But it was totally fine that my stepfather just left his pornographic material all over the house. That was fine. And when I said that I was just confused and that I had these things that I didn't understand and these feelings, I no sooner got the words out of my mouth than he backhanded me with the book. Talking about these things does not bring me joy. It does not bring me satisfaction. I mean, I guess it does in a way that it's out here so everyone will know, but it doesn't bring me joy. It's important for people to know. And I have anger. I do. I have a lot of anger because I shouldn't have gone through them because I was a child. And I emphasize it because I was a child and I didn't have a choice and I didn't understand what was happening to me. I just wanted to clarify some things after my last video. I guess this one is a little bit longer after all, so we're going to stop here for now for today. So thank you for sitting with me for this episode of Potions and Processing. I care about everyone who watches my videos, whether you agree with me or not, or whether you think that my existence is a sin or not. I still care about you. I hope that you all are taking care of yourselves, and I hope that you have a good day. If you feel the need to leave a hate comment, please make it interesting, because you should know I'm screenshotting them. And at the end of the year, we're going to do a compilation and I'm going to rate them and I'm going to give you a score. So make them at least interesting, please. Remember, we may be different species, but we are all part of the same family. So please be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and I will see you next week.